How did I learn English? When I was a child, I lived in a small town. Most people there spoke our native language. I had never thought about learning English because I didn't know why it was important. One day, a new teacher came to our school. Her name was Miss Taylor. She was from another country, and she spoke English very well. She taught us some simple words like hello, thank you, and goodbye. At first, I found it difficult to say these words. They sounded strange, and I felt shy to speak them, but Miss Taylor always smiled and encouraged us. She told us that learning English could open many doors for us in the future. After that, I became curious about English. I asked my parents to buy me an English book. It was a simple book with many pictures. The book had words like apple, dog, and house. I started to read it every day. I didn't understand all the words, but I enjoyed looking at the pictures. I would try to guess what each word meant. Sometimes, I would ask my teacher or my parents for help. Slowly, I began to remember some words. One day, I decided to write down all the new words I learned in a small notebook. I would carry this notebook everywhere I went. If I saw something interesting, like a beautiful flower or a new car, I would look for the English word in my book. This made learning English fun and exciting. It was like discovering a new world. In the evenings, I would sit with my grandfather. He was a kind and wise man. He didn't know English, but he was very supportive. He would listen to me as I tried to read my English book. Sometimes I would read a word wrong, and he would laugh softly, saying, "You are doing great. Keep going." His encouragement gave me the confidence to keep learning. After a few months, I knew many words, but I still couldn't speak English well. One day, Miss Taylor gave us a new challenge. She asked us to write a short story in English. I was nervous because I had never written a story in English before. I thought for a long time. Then, I remembered a story my grandfather told me about a brave rabbit. I decided to write about it. I used simple words and short sentences. It was not perfect, but I felt proud when I finished. When Miss Taylor read my story, she smiled and said, "This is a wonderful story. You have done a great job." Her words made me so happy. I felt like I had won a big prize. I realized that learning English was not just about knowing words. It was about expressing myself and sharing my thoughts. After that day, I started to speak more English in class. I made many mistakes, but I didn't feel embarrassed. I knew that mistakes were a part of learning. My classmates and I would practice speaking English together. We would greet each other in English, ask simple questions like "How are you?" and "What did you do yesterday?" It became a fun game for us. At home, I began to watch English cartoons. They were easy to understand because the characters spoke slowly and used simple words. I also listened to English songs. At first, I couldn't understand the lyrics, but I liked the music. I would sing along, even if I didn't know what the words meant. Little by little, I started to catch some words and phrases. It was like solving a puzzle. Every new word I understood felt like finding a hidden treasure. As time passed, I realized that English was not as difficult as I had thought. It was like learning to ride a bicycle. At first, it was hard, but once I got the balance, I could go anywhere. I could now read simple English books and write short stories. I even made some friends from other countries online. We would chat in English, and they would teach me new words. One day, Miss Taylor told us that there would be an English speaking contest at school. I was excited but also scared. I wanted to participate, but I was afraid of speaking in front of many people. My friends encouraged me, saying, "You can do it. "You speak English very well." I decided to give it a try. For the contest, I prepared a short speech about my favorite book. I practiced every day in front of the mirror. I would pretend that the mirror was the audience. I practiced my pronunciation, my gestures, and even my smile. On the day of the contest, I was very nervous. My heart was beating fast, and my hands were shaking. But when I saw Miss Taylor and my friends smiling at me, I felt a little better. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath and started to speak. I remembered all the words I had learned and the stories I had written. I spoke slowly and clearly. I made a few mistakes, but I didn't stop. I finished my speech, and the audience clapped. I felt so happy and relieved. I didn't win the contest, but I won something more important. I gained the confidence to speak English without fear. I realized that learning English was not just about studying. It was about believing in myself and never giving up. That day, I made a promise to myself. I would keep learning and improving my English, no matter what. This is how my journey of learning English began. It was not always easy, but it was full of joy and discovery. And it was just the beginning. In the next part, I will tell you how I continued my journey and the amazing experiences I had along the way. After the speaking contest, I felt more confident. I wanted to improve my English even more. Miss Taylor suggested that I join the school's English club. In the club, we did many fun activities like playing word games, acting out short plays, and having discussions about different topics. I enjoyed these activities because they were different from regular classes. I could practice English without feeling like I was studying. I made new friends who were also excited about learning English. One day, our English club decided to put on a play for the school. It was about a group of kids who find a magic book that can talk. Each of us got a role in the play. I was chosen to be the main character, a boy named Tom, who finds the book. I was nervous because I had many lines to memorize, but I also felt excited. I practiced my lines every day after school. I would stand in front of my family and say my lines aloud. My little sister, who didn't understand much English, would clap and say, "Good job," even if I made mistakes. On the day of the play, I was a little scared. There were many people in the audience. My parents, grandparents, and even my neighbors had come to watch. When it was my turn to speak, I took a deep breath and remembered all the practice I had done. I delivered my lines with confidence. The audience laughed and clapped at the right moments. It felt amazing to see so many people enjoying our play. After the performance, Miss Taylor came to me and said, "You were wonderful, Tom." I smiled and replied, "Thank you, but my name is not Tom." Everyone laughed, and I felt so proud. After that play, I realized something important. English was not just a subject in school. It was a way to connect with people and share stories. I wanted to learn more. I started to read more English books. I found a book series about a young wizard named Harry Potter. The books were difficult for me at first, but I loved the story. I would read a few pages each day, looking up new words in the dictionary. Sometimes I didn't understand everything, but I didn't let that stop me. I just kept reading and enjoying the story. One summer, I got a chance to go to an English camp in another city. It was a special camp for kids who wanted to improve their English. I was both excited and nervous because I would be away from home for a whole week. When I arrived at the camp, I saw many kids from different places. Some spoke English very well, and others were like me, still learning. Our camp leaders were friendly and spoke only in English. At first, I found it hard to understand everything they said, but they used simple words and gestures to help us. We had many activities at the camp. like singing English songs, playing sports, and doing group projects. My favorite activity was the storytelling session. Each evening, we would sit around a campfire, and the leader would tell us a story in English. The stories were about brave heroes, magical creatures, and faraway lands. I was fascinated by how they use words to create pictures in my mind. I wanted to be able to tell stories like that. During the camp, I made friends with a boy named Sam. He was from another country, and English was also his second language. We would talk about our favorite movies, books, and hobbies. Sometimes we would laugh at our mistakes and correct each other's sentences. It was nice to have a friend who understood the challenges of learning a new language. We promised to keep in touch after the camp and practice English together. When I returned home, I felt more motivated than ever. I started to watch English movies and TV shows with subtitles. I would pause and repeat the sentences to practice my pronunciation. I also listened to English podcasts about different topics like science, history, and even cooking. I found that listening to native speakers helped me understand how English was really spoken. I would imitate their accents and try to use the new phrases I learned in conversations. One day, I discovered a website where I could talk to people from all over the world in English. I was excited but also a little scared. What if they didn't understand me? What if I made mistakes? But I remembered what Miss Taylor always said, "Don't be afraid of mistakes. They help you learn," so I decided to try. I joined a chat room and started talking to a girl from Japan. Her name was Yuki. She was learning English too. We talked about our countries, our favorite foods, and our dreams. It was amazing to learn about her culture while practicing English. We became good friends and still chat often. One of the biggest moments in my English learning journey came when I decided to take an English proficiency test. It was a big test, and many people said it was difficult. I studied hard for it. I practiced reading, writing, listening, and speaking every day. I even took some mock tests online to prepare myself. On the day of the test, I was very nervous, but I told myself, "You have worked hard, you can do this." I did my best on the test, and when the results came, I was so happy. I had scored much higher than I expected. That test result opened many doors for me. I was able to apply for a special English program at a university. I got to study English with students from different countries. We would discuss many interesting topics and learn about each other's cultures. It was a wonderful experience that helped me improve my English even more. Looking back, I realized that learning English has been an amazing journey. It was not always easy, but it was worth it. I learned not only a new language but also gained confidence, made friends from around the world, and discovered new opportunities. English has become a part of my life, and I use it every day. Whether I am reading a book, watching a movie, or talking to friends, English helps me connect with the world. If I could give advice to anyone learning English, I would say, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Be patient and practice a little every day. Find what makes learning fun for you, whether it's reading stories, singing songs, or talking to friends. And most importantly, never give up. Learning a new language takes time, but every step you take brings you closer to your goal. Keep going, and you will be surprised at how far you can go. We finished. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share.